Hey everyone, how are you doing today? We are back with Mr. Greg Dickerson, and we are going to talk about the greatest tax that we all pay, and that's inflation. How you doing, Greg?
Doing great, Michael. How about you?
I'm doing all right. So I think it was episode one. We kind of rounded that
hmm
session out. You were really sharing that you think hyperinflation or at least significant inflation is coming. And again, it is the greatest tax we all pay. So why don't you
hmm
round out that idea more, and we will talk about that some.
Yeah, so we're seeing it hot and heavy right now. We are in a very rapid inflationary environment. Our problem right now is a liquidity problem. There's too much liquidity being put out on the streets from the Fed and the Treasury and the acts that they've taken really since 2008 and 9, but more particularly this year,
Mhm.
in the past year with the pandemic and things like that. And then what's coming in terms of what we're continuing to do. And we're already seeing it. So you and I have talked about real inflation at the consumer level, which is what the Fed is looking for and trying to get to that 2% range. We're already well above that. All you got to do is go to the grocery stores, go to the gas pumps, look at housing, look at the construction industry, look at financial assets. We're there. We are in a hyperinflationary mode. It just hasn't triggered and hit home with people yet because we're still reopening. We still, a big chunk of the economy is still missing. But once we get back open, July, August, like they're talking about in a lot of areas, New York City, these other
Mhm.
areas that are wide open,
Yeah.
you're going to see inflation at levels you've never seen. And just go to the grocery store. I mean, lunch meat turkey is $7 a pound.
Yeah.
In my area, and it's probably more in your area in
Yeah,
different
I mean,
parts of
just
the
talk
country.
about. I just filled up my car yesterday. It was
Mhm.
almost $5 a gallon. It's only been that high one other time, and I lived here for 50 years.
Yeah, and that was
$5.
probably 5 or 6 years ago,
Correct.
when gas was just through the roof, when there was this, OPEC was having
Yeah.
their little thing and limiting
Yep.
supply. But yeah, gas is back up, hitting record levels again. It's going to go even higher because of the summer travel season,
Uh,
things like that. If you look at vacation rental homes,
yeah.
people aren't traveling abroad. So that's all
How
going through
about
the
rental
roof.
cars? Rental cars.
hmm
Their rental cars are so expensive in Hawaii. They're renting U-Haul trucks. And
Yeah.
I mean, that. First off, that's
Well,
creative.
talk about that. I mean,
Ah,
there's a U-Haul shortage. There's
yeah.
so many people moving and doing stuff, you can't even get U-Hauls, and then vehicles. So I mean, vehicles dealers cannot get inventory because of the chip,
Yeah.
shortage
Shortage.
and
Yeah.
things like that. So we're already seeing inflation. I've talked about issues I've had with my Suburban, with having to replace the engine. It's a 2016,
Hmm.
150,000 miles. And I already had to replace the transmission and the engine in that car.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
But anyways, I've been dealing with that. So I was looking at, well, maybe I'll buy a new car. It's ridiculous right now. The prices on, I drive Suburbans, and
Mhm.
maybe I'll downsize to a Tahoe now that my kids are all grown. But the prices on those vehicles are just insane right now, compared to where they were a year or two ago.
Yeah, and actually, I just reported that this morning on the Daily Financial News. Dealerships are having record profits because they don't have to discount. They have
hmm
they're talking about. Yeah, I thought this was amazing. 75% of the trucks that show up on their delivery are pre-sold.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, you could almost get into car flipping, right? You buy a
Yeah,
brand new car and wait on the lot. Just just go ahead and pay cash for it and wait for the next guy to come in and sell it to, sell
yeah.
it to them for more money.
Oh man, yeah. I mean,
I
that's
thought about doing that with a Suburban because those are like Suburbans. Big vehicles are like hot right now, in big demand, because I guess a lot of people are traveling
yeah.
in the country. They need bigger vehicles because they can't travel abroad right now. And I mean, I literally thought about doing that because there was only one or two on the lot, and they were like, "Man, we can't keep them in stock."
Yes. Okay, great. I'll buy them all, and then I'll be the guy on this side of the street saying, "You want one?"
Yeah, just to see what you could do, just as a little, make a video. It'd been
That's
fun.
crazy. So again, I want to talk about this because again, inflation hits everyone. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, inflation is actually the greatest tax middle class and lower pay because it just consumes their dollars more, right? They have a lot more less margin of safety. And again, it's because inflation hits what we consume, right?
Yeah.
Again, go to the grocery store, fill up your car.
Well, and a lot of people, it's there. It's everything. Your movie theaters, all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff, and people aren't really feeling it right now because a lot of people haven't been spending elsewhere, eating out,
exactly.
going to movies. Maybe gym memberships got paused. There's that unemployment bonus
Yep.
that people are getting. There's been the stimulus check, so it's kind of like people haven't really felt it because they've had a little bit of excess cash. Those trips abroad haven't been taken, going to events, all those types of things where people would normally be spending. they're not really seeing their budget, if
Yes.
they're watching their checkbook balances and budgets. So they're not really noticing it, but I'm watching, because, just because I'm interested. And I've really noticed, especially what, food prices have done. Fuel prices, obviously, I do a lot of traveling. So I'm always
Yeah.
looking at fuel prices as I'm out and about in different areas that I travel. And it's hitting home quick. And as soon as we get back to work and all of the support, the stimulus stops, the unemployment bonus stops, all that kind of stuff, it's going to hit home real hard. And then once, the world's back open and airlines are traveling and all that, airline tickets are going to be through the roof because their costs are way up. It's here. It's here. And it's kind of like that little tidal wave, tide kind of goes out, you don't really notice. And all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, there's no water here. Next thing you know, boom.
Lots of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah, I've been concerned about this for a while. And again, I mean, it's what people pay. Like single family rentals, they're up double digits in most of the country. I posted that on my Instagram yesterday. I found it, I think it was John Bird's Real Estate Consulting published it, and I just shared it on Instagram. 10, 11, 12% rent bumps in single family homes. And again, that's going to keep going because what's happening in housing is you can't buy them. It's getting less affordable, but you still want one. So you become a renter. So it's,
Yeah, and apartments, the whole business model, buy, renovate, increase rents, all that. But you can only push so far because
yeah,
incomes are not going up exponentially to keep pace with everything else. So as these other pressures, start to come home with people in their budgets, that only leaves so much left over for housing. So you'll start to see some pushback there where people will start moving, they'll not pay, those
they'll
types of
trade
things.
down
So
areas. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, it's interesting times. And it's going to be interesting to see how things continue to unfold, especially if you add tax increases on top of it, so people's income shrink, while prices are going up. I mean, there's a perfect storm coming that could lead back to negative rates because the Fed, they're out of bullets. There's only so much they can do.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to highlight here is I also see wage inflation coming. I see a lot of inflation talk historically of kind of taking care of the owner. I actually see the swing in the pendulum where the workers will get at least a piece of the pie. They maybe not get as big a piece as they deserve, but it's all going to be eaten up in these other areas, gas, food,
Mhm.
so I do see wage inflation coming, which I don't know to
Yeah,
what degree.
wages have increased a little bit, but nowhere near what everything else has. And I know,
Correct.
there's the push for the $15 an hour minimum wage, and a lot of companies are already there paying
Yeah.
that. But even that still isn't going to, I mean, that's still not a great living wage. That's still difficult in most areas of the country to get by on 15 bucks an hour, especially if taxes go up and all these other things. And, when taxes go up, they're going to go up on everybody. It's not just going to be the wealthy.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then the other thing is this Jerome Powell keeps his head down going, we're not even thinking about raising rates yet. Uh, he's going to have to change his tune in July and August. It's just going to be
Yeah,
so
they
obvious.
don't get it, man. It's really interesting. And somebody to follow is Danielle DiMartino Booth. She
Oh,
used to be
she's
with the Fed.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and she worked under Powell, and she's like, man, they're just not looking at the right things. They think they're looking at CPI and all that, but they're not seeing it. And again, these are people that just they just don't get it. They're not out there on the street looking at
No,
what's really going on.
they live in spreadsheets and numbers and all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think they're malicious or they're just missing it. And they're using old metrics. Again, this is our first pandemic. This is our first reopening, whatever you want to call it. It is going to be fierce. And again,
Well,
the other thing is prices are elastic, right? Once they go
yeah,
up, they're slow to come down.
and the problem is it's economists. So the Fed and central banks, they're all run by and listening to economists.
Mhm.
And economists are theorists. They study things, economic theory,
Mhm.
and most of them have never had a real job, have never created any jobs, never
Yeah.
created an enterprise. They don't understand what it takes to run a business, and to make the world work. They just use these economic theories and things. And it's really not complicated. It's all about supply and demand.
Mhm.
And the more money you put on the street, the more prices are going to go up. And what we discussed before is to have hyperinflation, you have to have more money in the pockets of the people. And with the stimulus checks, the unemployment bonuses, things like that, and the limited spending elsewhere, we now have more dollars in people's pockets.
For
And
sure.
when you add on to that supply chain constraints and
Yeah.
limited inventory of everything, you're seeing hyperinflation, all the way around. And then when you throw on top of that tax increases, man, you got a perfect storm.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying here, or what we're both saying, is hold on tight. This year's got some surprises coming.
Hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not sure if I feel better or worse, but at least I feel informed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's nothing to worry about. It is what
Yeah.
it is, and you just got to be prepared and budget for it. And
Yep.
prices are going up, but again, it's short lived, right? So what goes up comes down, what goes down goes back up.
Mm.
So it's all economic cycles, and you just got to understand where to play it, how to play it. And like I just said earlier, what do you invest in? You invest in assets that people need that are going to continue to pay you regardless of what the economy does. If
Yeah.
you've got income producing assets, not stores of value that go up 1 minute down the next, literally, or that can like lose their value in 100% of their value in a matter of a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
Those are assets you don't want to own. You don't want to play with.
Mm-hmm.
You want to own things that generate and produce income on an ongoing basis, so that when things get more expensive, well, you just have assets that pay for that.
Yeah, I'll just go close with a plug for one rental at a time. Go get that income producing asset and lock in 30-year cheap money. I think you have a really unique time where rates are artificially low and you have inflation coming in rents and values, and go get one. If you don't have one, get
That's
one.
right.
If you have one, get two.
Yeah. So when the bank charges you to hold your money, you have assets that'll pay for that.
There you go. Oh man, Greg, thank you very much for your time. It's been a lot of fun as always.
Yeah.